Cold Outreach Done Right: How People and Small Teams Can Effectively Research Their Audiences, Create High-Quality Outreach Lists, and Properly Shoot Their Shot. So I had a little bit of trouble developing this presentation because I wanted this to be very broadly applicable to anybody, to everybody who's tuned in. But at the same time, it's a little bit at odds with my overall philosophical approach to cold outreach, which is being super, super specific, doing a ton of research, and just taking a very personalized approach. So I've done my very best to give some good examples, give at least some actionable frameworks for you to use moving forward, whether you are, an agency or consultant pitching businesses, whether you have a product, whether you are someone who's looking for a job and you are cold outreaching companies. So, all right, first, let's get started with this. What's wrong with my cold outreach? So maybe you've sent a bunch of emails, you've sent DMs, people aren't responding to you. What is going on? What is wrong with my cold outreach? So usually when cold outreach is not good, it tends to be some combination of one of these things. It's irrelevant to the recipient. Maybe you emailed Rand when you should have emailed me. Could have been that. There's no ooh moment. So this is beyond clickbait. Clickbait is, maybe the subject line. Or if it's an email, someone's probably going to open it anyway. The ooh moment is, why should I care? Like, why should I keep reading past its first sentence? So it's a little bit more alluding to the value beyond clickbait. There's no aha moment. The aha moment is the value. Like, oh, I have to respond to this because this is very relevant to me. It's valuable. I'm going to get a great outcome, whatever that might be. The request seems big. Maybe you're not being specific. The request is vague. Maybe you're asking like 3 or 4 questions. And what I say here is cognitive loads are real. If I get a long message that has a vague request, I kind of tend to retreat to, I don't want to respond to this. Like, I don't know what they want from me, and I don't know if I can do this. So that's one. People don't know you. Now, when I say this, it's not about fame. It's not about like, oh, I'm super famous and people don't want to, or I'm not super famous. It's about clarity. So if you are, let's say, an agency or a consultant and you're doing some cold outreach to get clients and somebody Googles your name, but they see like maybe an old blog that you had, like something that's irrelevant to the ask, people might think, oh, who is this person? This is kind of strange. Last one, you're asking for the wrong thing. So this kind of goes beyond irrelevant to the recipient. This is like, maybe you have a really, really long sales cycle and your deal size is huge and you're saying, hey, like, do you need my services? Long sort of sales cycles tend to be associated with needing to sort of build that relationship over time. So maybe, maybe your ask is, hey, I have some really interesting resources for you. Do you want them? And that's the ask. It could be that. It could be maybe you're asking for an earned link, and maybe that particular website just doesn't do that. Yep. So could be you're asking for the wrong thing.
This is the one I'm very passionate about, where I feel like, Amanda, there's like this process that you can do where you have outcome that you want, and people just think that cold outreach is, I'll just ask for the outcome. But in fact, the best way to do it is to think, hey, what are things I could ask for that might eventually lead to the outcome that I want that would actually be accepted? And if you're doing cold outreach, I would think about the relationship building and the acceptance side of it, rather than just getting the result you want right away.
Exactly. Now, I'll kind of kick off here with my personal 5 rules of cold outreach. You know what? Everybody has their own philosophical approach to work. Here are mine. My first rule is give a shit about the person.
Yes.
Care about the other person. You are complete strangers. Do some research on them. Figure out some of their pain points. Care about them. Second rule, you cannot demand attention from a stranger. Like I said, even if you put, ton of effort, or even if you've been following them on LinkedIn or Twitter for a while and you're a low-key fan, it doesn't mean that that person owes you anything, right? You can't demand attention from a stranger. Rule number 3, talk like a human talking to other humans. So I don't know.
Seems so straightforward.
It seems straightforward, but here we are. No, but I mean, for this, it's like, yes, think beyond clickbait, think about the aha moments, think about that stuff, yes. But remember, you're talking to another person. This is not a landing page, right? So if you are, let's say you have some kind of email extension, don't email someone and say, we get you to inbox 0 fast. That's for a landing page. Maybe just say, hey, we are a Gmail extension. We help you develop templates and automation so that you can write your email faster. Yes, that's more verbose, but at least it gets to specifically what you do, why you do it, why it's important.
Well, yeah, and also, right, like if you're gonna talk like a human talking to other humans, I feel like the way to for me, the way I always think about that is I try and write it to someone I know, and then I just remove the bits of the person, like, hey, Amanda, I know you and I both get a lot of email. Here's this Gmail extension that I started using that helps me, get my inbox down from the 100 messages after my anniversary trip. Yeah. And then I just pull out the parts. Instead of Amanda, it's, hey, Fred, right? And instead of I know you, it's, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn talking about email productivity, whatever it is, right? Then you're having that human conversation. I still include the bit about the anniversary trip because that's the kind of thing I would email to someone I knew. I really like that human approach.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think what I'm also hearing with that is you're not presuming friendship. You're just assuming your friendly self. Like you're being friendly, but you're not assuming they are your friend. There's a difference.
Yeah. That is a perfect way of framing it. I love like imagining that 10 years in the future, we are friends and they're looking back and being like, oh, even this first interaction was great, but not we're already friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rule number 4, be genuine. So we were kind of already saying this. And again, one of those things that might sound obvious, but not everyone does this. And yet be genuine because it's the right thing to do. Like, be forthcoming with what you are asking for, what your product is, whatever it is. The other side of that is smart people have pretty good BS radars. And chances are you're reaching out to smart people. So do it because it's the right thing to do. And then do it because if you don't do the right thing, you're not going to get the outcome you want anyway. So yeah. Last, don't waste time. Don't waste their time and don't waste yours. So don't write a super, super long email. Spend the upfront time doing a little bit of research on this person before you reach out. Doing that, I say that as like, it's kind of putting the investment behind it. If you spend a little bit of extra time researching each person before you reach out, then ultimately the whole thing is not going to be a waste of time. What I think is a waste of time is spending an hour like just finding email addresses and then blasting people and then getting no response. That's a waste of time to me. Spending 2 hours to get fewer emails, doing some intel, maybe learning something about other people and their expertise, and then getting a 50% response rate, that's a really good use of time to me. All right. So here's where I would start. So starting from the beginning of, all right, you're going to do cold outreach. How are you going to start? Where are you going to find people? How are you going to create your list? I've kind of boiled it down to this. Start with look to aggregators to create a decent quality list. Now, this is aggregator in the broadest sense of the word. I'm just talking about aggregator as a thing that is a source of other things, an entity that is a source of leads or opportunities. There are tons and tons of examples of this, but here are some of my favorites. Industry roundups. So these might be like ebooks, guides, top 20 lists. One of my favorite ones personally is Wealthfront's career launching companies. So this is a list they do. Get my notes here. Wealthfront is an automated investment company. And every year they do this list of like 100, 150 companies who have a revenue run rate between 20 million and 300 million, have a really, really ridiculously great trajectory of growth, are doing really well. And I mention this list because it's good for if you're looking for a job and you want, maybe you're like, I want to try to work at a successful company. It's a good list to start out with. If you are pitching your services, might make sense to start here to see who you might want to reach out to. Another one, other websites and communities. There are tons of these. And of course, it just depends on what your niche is or who you're trying to reach out to. Here are just a couple, Product Hunt, CXL, and a newer site, Bootstrappers. These might give you an idea for companies and people to reach out to. And then finally, social accounts. So influential people on social media. I personally really like SparkScore. We don't talk about it a lot, but this is one of our free tools. If you go to SparkToro.com/score, you can check your own SparkScore. And then the screenshot here of related accounts. So I did a search for Rand, and Rand, your SparkScore went up. So congratulations.
Oh man, I mean, something must be working.
Yeah. So this is a screenshot from some of Rand's related accounts. So these are people that he probably has spoken with frequently in the past, month or so. And this will at least give you some kind of sense of like, cool, if I want to reach Rand, here are some other people who are probably top of mind for him. Same goes for anyone
LinkedIn's, 1 degree away, 2 degrees away thing is also really good for this. Sweet. And, Amanda, just to clarify, when you say source of leads, so this is like for building the list of people that you want to reach out to. So for example, if I were trying to pitch lots of high growth tech company, but high growth, still private tech companies, the career launching companies list might be a good one. Or if I wanted to reach bootstrap startups because I have some product for them, the bootstrappers thing. So you're not saying like use these for everything. You're saying
yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So taking the example of Bootstrappers, this is a website that basically shares wins and stories about bootstrap companies. It's a pretty cool website. And you can't just like easily scrape the website. You have to like read some of the articles, check out some of the content there, and then maybe you'll think, oh, here's a company I should reach out to. I'm going to make note of them. Or maybe I'll do a little bit of research on this particular company, figure out who the founder is. Maybe reaching out to them is a good match for my marketing agency or for my product, stuff like that. So I'll walk through in a couple slides here an example scenario using SparkToro. So I guess I should actually start with this. Years and years and years ago, when I was running a PR function by myself, I did a ton of manual audience research. And by manual audience research, I mean, I made a list of all the publications I wanted my company to be featured in. Like, made a list of, I was at a snack company at the time. So I made a list of like Food Navigator, Lifehacker, a ton of companies that were adjacent maybe to food. And then I read all those websites. I read their articles, and then I followed those authors on Twitter. And then I just kept reading, kept up with the times. And it was obviously worth it because we got some really good press placements. But a lot of what I did would have been done a lot faster if I had a tool like SparkToro. So I'll kind of preface it with this. So in this example, pretend you're a marketing agency or you're a consultant. So maybe you want to reach out to marketing teams or small businesses so that you can pitch your services to them. So I might start with my audience frequently visits the website cxl.com. My hypothesis being, okay, maybe they care about understanding or optimizing for conversions. Maybe they're worried about their landing page, like what it looks like. So maybe they go to cxl.com for resources. So did a search here. Then I went to the social tab in SparkToro. and I see it happens to be Rand, who's up here. But then what I would do is I would click on filters just to get a little bit more granular with the information. So once you click into filters, here's what you would see. There's no right way to do this, right? Like you could click on hidden gems, which could give you some really high engagement accounts. Personally, what I might do in this situation is I might change the audience size and make it smaller. I might say, okay, maybe audience size maximum to like 125,000 followers, maybe. And then so these are just some of the initial results. You could see their Spark score. So first you would see the percent of audience. So the percent of audience that follows these people, Spark score, which is kind of their level of engagement relative to their following, and then amount of social followers they have. I would sort social followers from least to greatest, because my working hypothesis here is I'm going to reach out to some of these people personally. I'm trying to pitch my services to a bunch of companies. I'm going to try to reach out people who might be more accessible or open to responding to me. So maybe it's people who have not a million followers, right? So I would search that, and then I would add them to a SparkToro list just to better organize all of my data. And then from there, with my handy dandy paid SparkToro account, I would look at the contact info. So this is contact info that is publicly available. And then I would export this into the CSV file so I can keep track of everything, and maybe add a column for status just to stay organized. And then something else I might do is I might use the compare audience feature to segment the audience even further. So I talked about, let's say, the current example of marketing agency. You maybe you specialize in growth marketing and you want to reach out to some leads. Let's say you want to reach out to people who talk about landing pages, right? Because you might hypothesize that people who talk about landing pages they want to optimize for it. Maybe they have questions, maybe they have expertise. But in the world of marketing, landing pages is pretty broad. That could apply to anybody and anything. Maybe your agency specializes in e-commerce. So I might compare an audience that talks about landing pages to an audience that talks about e-commerce. So we see there are over 60,000 shared profiles. And then we look at some of the overlap data. These people on websites seem pretty cool. Like I know some of these people, they're great. Something else I might look at just to better understand this is the distinctive data. So, okay, maybe it didn't occur to me to look at people who follow Adobe Commerce or Practical Ecom or e-consultancy. These might be things that I wasn't thinking about initially. So I would use this to find other people to reach out to better segment my list, to just kind of get an overall picture of what and who people are following.
And Amanda, on the left-hand column, the social accounts where you're showing the overlap data, it's good to note, for technical reasons, the way Casey built it is that the first few show, but you have to download that overlap CSV to get the full list. And then on the right-hand column, if you want more of the distinctive data, you can run those two queries as separate searches. So that's kind of the way to do it. It's not the most intuitive. I think, we've been talking about how do we make the overlap, the compare feature a little bit more robust in the future, but you can sort of hack it, get all the things that you might want from both of those and expand those lists.
That's super interesting. And
so that overlap CSV will give you like hundreds of overlaps, not just the first 5.
See, that is interesting and useful, obviously. But I would also think about this as like using this initial data here in the screenshots to just better understand the landscape. I would be thinking more about sort of the qualitative info you get out of getting these specific results too. So
yeah. I mean, I like seeing to what degree are two topics related and how many people talk about each of them and where do you find one versus the other. There's definitely a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so now we are in the phase of kind of culling down our list. Maybe we have a bunch of initial people to reach out to. Maybe we have a sense of what they are talking about or doing. So I might start here as a next step. I might go to LinkedIn and become audience informed. I might do a search. Maybe I'm looking for marketing directors, right? In the current example, remember of we are an agency or a consultant trying to get leads. Maybe I would search for marketing directors. Maybe I would just start with first connections. Who knows? So I would follow or connect to people on LinkedIn, use the search, filter by first, second, or third connection. If it were relevant, would filter by location. And then I would just follow along with their content. I would do this before messaging them. We all hate, right, being added on LinkedIn and then someone says, "Hi, can we schedule a demo?" I would follow along. If they post, I would follow along first, try to kind of get to know them from a distance, right? Or on Twitter. This is a great list. Amber Naslund has created this list of women in marketing. That's relevant to you. So maybe of all the data that I have, I would create a private Twitter list and follow the content there. That might be an easy way to just see everything in one feed. Check out interesting discussions and then chime in when appropriate and sort of build that relationship from afar. All right. Lost my place. Okay. So I'll get a little bit more into the sort of getting to know someone from afar sort of thing. So that'll come up. But next I would do this. Check yourself and research them. What does that mean? I would start with Googling myself. If I'm going to be reaching out to a bunch of people who don't know me, I would assume that they might Google me and think, like, who is this person, right? So one, is it clear who and what you are in the capacity of this outreach? Maybe, maybe not. Does it align with the outreach, right? Like if you are reaching out for sales, does it say on your LinkedIn profile that maybe you're a sales leader, something like that? Yeah. So think about what you might need to edit, right? So this isn't even about like real SEO, right? It's just kind of like what comes up in the first top 2 results. No one's going to be like going through all the pages, right? But what can you change that's in your control? Most likely the top result's going to be your LinkedIn profile. You can change your headline. And then using myself as the example, frankly, if I were going to do some cold outreach, I might change marketing architect. Fathomably, it is possible that I could do cold outreach to people to do some product interviews, right? They might see marketing architect and be like, I don't know what that is. So maybe I would put like marketing and product in my headline. I might do that. Next, research them. So I would go back to SparkToro and start looking at some of the text insights. So of the people who visit cxl.com, they use these phrases in their posts and comments. Here you might get a sense of overall interests and pain points. You might see if these are relevant to you. And maybe these are your areas of expertise. Like maybe you're saying, quote, cool, landing pages, great. Conversion strategy, okay. These things, these align with, maybe my outreach. Another tool I would consider is answerthepublic.com. They do real-time, you can do searches for queries, and they will show you real-time data of how people are searching for answers. So if somebody is searching for landing page, they're also, the things that they might be interested in are, what is the main purpose of a landing page? What does landing page mean? When to create a landing page? This like tree thing will show you when, who, what, where, blah, blah type of questions. It kind of gives you a sense for how people are framing their pain points or their questions. So all of this might clue you in on how to draft a good message.
Amanda, do you know that Answer the Public is like one of my least favorite tools on the internet?
Why didn't you say something?
Because, I don't know, because people love it. Like a lot of people love it. They think it's so great. And so I don't want to like yuck somebody else's yum.
Can you tell me about this yuck?
Okay. Well, so, all right. My two primary complaints are, number one, it scrapes Google Suggest, but not comprehensively. Like it just uses the suggest API and doesn't, it just like starts typing ahead. So it'll be like landing pages, and then they'll use the how, what, when, where, why to get the questions, for example. So you don't get a comprehensive list because of how it types ahead. But then the second thing is it makes it all in these little circles, which is really tough to like scan through or sort. Like to me, the most important thing is, do more people search for when to build landing pages, or do more people search for when to use landing pages? That feels critical.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
If you go to Google Suggest and you start typing, you'll see one ahead of the other, and then you'll know that more people go for one than the other. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
So
the answer to the public people, they really don't like me.
Oh, no.
We've had like a 6-year-long, like... Anyway, I think they're going to be thrilled. They're going to be thrilled that Amanda, that you're featuring them on here. And I just want to say, this should resolve our feud, right?
It should. Well, here's a question for you. Would you suggest instead doing the Google search to see the autocomplete instead of doing this?
Generally, that's my preference, right? I'd open an incognito window so that you don't get the personalization, and then I'd start the type ahead. You'll still get geographic bias if you want. What I really want is numbers, so I'm going to use a paid tool like my old company Moz or SEMrush or Ahrefs or Systrix or somebody like that. I think Moz still has a free version of Keyword Explorer, which is the tool I built. But yeah, that. Like anything that tells me a number, there's more people who search for this than this, and like how much more, that feels really valuable. Okay.
So the final word here is use this or don't. It's really up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people absolutely love it. They love the like brainstorming thing. They really like that there's no numbers because they're like, I just want to understand the landscape. I'm not trying to, do SEO and figure out which one's more than the other one and that kind of thing. And for me, I'm like, this is the worst way to organize information ever created.
Yeah. Even aside from what you were saying, I would also say I've never actually exported data from answerthepublic.com. So personally, the way I would use this is to do a search and to just kind of like glance at this wheel thing and just to see like, oh, what are people saying? Is there a phrase here that I hadn't considered that actually does speak to a key feature that my product has? Like I would be thinking about that. I personally wouldn't spend all the time to scrape through or like read through all the exportable data. I feel like that's not a good use of time.
Yeah.
I'd want to just kind of get that overview kind of sense.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And if it works for you, great. I've often felt like I'm the only one on the planet who doesn't like Answer the Public. People are like, oh, it's so lovely. Look at the beautiful wheel. I'm like, no. But this is, I on the flip side, I like pie charts. Everybody hates pie charts. I like them.
I like pie charts.
All right. See, there you go.
Okay. So maybe we'll do a presentation on pie charts.
Next webinar, things Amanda and Rand love and hate. And then
with Venn diagrams and pie charts and pie, I hope. All right. Next section here is maybe instead of cold outreach, you should be doing warm outreach instead. What is warm outreach? I forgot what the slide. Okay, forgot what I was going to say here. So be social on social media. Yeah, it's there. When people post publicly, it means you're allowed to reply to them. I kind of say that tongue in cheek because that was me for a very, very long time. I think I've had a Twitter account for like 13 years, just didn't tweet. I even followed Rand for a very long time and I never replied to any of his tweets because I always thought like, oh, this dude has like 400,000 followers. He doesn't care what I think. And so I would just, I was a very passive follower of Rand. I would just kind of look at his content, be like, oh, cool. Or he wrote a blog post. Oh, I'm going to read that. It just never occurred to me to reach out. That's just me personally. I don't recommend that. What I am recommending is reach out, follow along with the content and reach out when your offer or your request is relevant to their content. here are some examples that have kind of worked on me. Cool. Okay. Last month, I did a tweet about marketing and tech opportunities. And I was like, hey, you know what? I hear about a lot of cool opportunities. Fill out my Airtable form. And then, I'll kind of have you in my Rolodex. And then Palette, they create job boards. They DM'd me. They just DM'd me my own tweet and said, hey, would love to talk about setting you up with this. And I replied, and I'm looking into it now. It totally worked. And you can tell, like, it's one sentence. Like, they didn't say, like, hey, it's nice to meet you. No, it's fine. It's just Twitter, just boom, message.
Yeah. No, I actually love the ease of use for this.
Yeah. I did a thread a couple of weeks ago on doing reference checks. And then someone here, Carrie, she reached out to me and said, hey, I'm a co-founder of Searchlight. We help people do references at scale, basically. Saw your tweet, would love to chat. And then we ended up chatting, and she's a lovely person. And if you are looking if you are in kind of the human resources adjacent space, consider looking into Searchlight. You could also kind of do this in reverse. So you can be the one to start the conversation on social media and then just see how people reply to you. So I had this tweet. Yeah, it's kind of like a way to pre-qualify your leads by being the one to put out the content. You can have conversations in the timeline, and then you can be the one to DM them if there's follow-up. So earlier this week, I tweeted this: community-led growth is the new product-led growth. Sounds probably maybe fortune cookie-ish, but it was a thought that I had that I just kind of had this working hypothesis about community-led growth as a marketing strategy. This person named Sid replied. He said, hey, as someone who's been focusing solely on Twitch and YouTube marketing strategies, it baffles me that more people have not caught onto this yet. The power of a close-knit community is unmatched. I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay. I'm like, well, what are some of the most exciting communities in Twitch and YouTube to you? Because that for me personally is not, I don't tend to be on Twitch and YouTube. So I was interested. He said, streamers like Mikey Perk are a great example of how powerful community building on Twitch can be. So I felt like, we had a little bit more back and forth, super interesting. I ended up DMing him to say, hey, thanks. He said, thank you for chatting with me. So now I feel like if I want to learn more about community-led growth or want to have more of a conversation on it, the door's kind of open for me to reach out to him. So I think this kind of works for, as long as you have at least some followers or some engaged following or your friends are online. Yeah.
So I have been trying to do this for a long time. I mean, I love this. This tactic has worked for me for a ton of things. It actually, weirdly enough, it worked very well for me for raising capital.
Ooh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So if you are trying to get your startup funded, that completely works. So I have not talked about it publicly much. I probably will at some point, but Amanda, that Geraldine and I are working with a game studio on making a video game. And so one of the things I've been doing is following a bunch of people in video game world on Twitter and then and LinkedIn and making connections with them, Twitch as well, and also Discord, which is a big community for that. And then just making relationships. This is actually how I found Nicholas Kraj, who's doing the game design for us. And it's how I found Acapara Studios, who's making the game in Los Angeles and all this stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people are infuriatingly tough. There's these two guys who made this game Undermine, and I've been following Clint Tasker, who's here in Seattle, for a long time, hoping that, if I reply to enough of his tweets and sort of build up a little relationship there, he'd eventually be like, hey man, how's it going? It hasn't worked. But usually this tactic works very well for me, building those relationships. I think this is my absolute favorite tactic to turn cold outreach into warm outreach.
Absolutely. And I might add, would you consider disguising one of your questions as a fortune cookie tweet like I did? Community-led growth is the new product-led growth. I mean, I don't know, right?
Interesting. No, I have done stuff like this, right?
Okay.
Where I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about this universe. Let me send out some tweets that I think will get traction, or let me post a blog post that I think will get traction, or put something on LinkedIn, put something on Facebook, put something on Instagram, right? That I think will get traction. I mean, this is actually part of how I use Instagram, where I will post about being in a place pre-COVID. I'll be like, oh, we just landed in whatever, Milan. And like, I wonder what we'll explore the next few days. And then a bunch of people will comment and say, you should go here, you should do this, you'll love this, right? And so then you get recommendations and tips. And I think the same thing is true in business development world, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Even Reddit can work for this.
Oh, yeah.
Emily Grossman, great marketer out in the UK, was commenting about how she uses Tinder for this, which I was like, I'm sorry, what? How?
What?
Well, so she'll be like, I have my profile, I'll change the location of the profile. I think she sent a tweet thread about it. And then basically use I'll say, oh, I'm exploring this city, or I'm doing this. And then she's like, and guys who are looking to date women cannot wait to give you their advice. Like, they just are falling over themselves to give you advice. And she was like, it's great. I get tons and tons of advice.
That's hilarious. All right. I guess after this call, I'm going to set up my Tinder profile.
We'll talk to our respective spouses. No, I swear it was from a webinar.
I'll get on Tinder and then I'll see my husband. Like, wait. Never happened. All right. Really, really quick. I don't like to shame people. These are all de-identified, don't worry. But really quick, please don't do this. Please don't do the wall of text. Don't do this. It's too much. I don't want to look at this. No. Because in this case here, it instantly looks like spam. Like, this message, I don't think is even that long, but with all these line breaks, it's probably for readability too, but it looks worse. Like, to me, this looks like it was scraped together by a bot or something. And I was like, no, I'm not going to look at this. Even on mobile Twitter, so mobile/Twitter, don't do the wall of text. Mind the medium. Remember, people on Twitter, they're not looking for super long form content. They're just skimming. They're not really reading. And if you need this much context for a Twitter DM, it probably is a sign that this isn't a fit. If you have to have all of this explanation, then it's also just too much of a cognitive load for the recipient. They're not going to want to do this. All right. So let's talk about writing an effective message. So yay, I somehow was able to, put this into some kind of framework. So I have a couple of sort of template-y stuff here. All right. So a framework for guest posts. Let's say you want to write for an ad week, like a news site, right? Or Entrepreneur, Forbes or something. Or maybe it's not this, right? It doesn't have to be this. It could be a blog that you follow or admire, a website that you respect. It doesn't have to, it could be anything, right? Guest post. First, check if they accept guest posts. Some people don't do it. We don't. At SparkToro, we just don't. It just isn't something we do. That's that. And then if they do accept guest posts, what kind do they accept? Using Adweek as an example, look, they have a couple of different sections for Adweek. They have dedicated editors to cover the topics of brand marketing, creativity, social media marketing, performance marketing. So kind of look at what sections are, who contributes to them, what they write about, how they write about it. And then pitch yourself. Why you and not someone else? If you want to write about e-commerce for Adweek, why would it be you and not Kaylee Moore here? Kaylee Moore is a well-known and respected e-commerce writer, right? But there's also room for everyone. If you want to write about something, what can you uniquely say that someone else can't say? Maybe you have a certain expertise, certain style. Maybe you have certain stats or proof points that you know really well. A framework for, I'm going to say product. This kind of works for if you're just kind of asking for a favor. But I see this a lot for product related cold outreach. What is your product? So, explain what it is in human terms. What are you requesting? Like, are you asking to show someone your product for feedback? Are you asking them to pay for it? Are you asking them, like, what are you asking them for? And this is something that I get a lot for product, where someone's asking something like, I would love to get your eyes on this. I have no idea what that means. Eyes on, okay, then send me a website. I can look at it. I think what they are really asking is they want me to use their product. Those are two different things. So what are you requesting? And be super clear about it. Why you and not someone else? What is unique about you or your product? Maybe you're an indie hacker and you've built a bunch of, SaaS tools and you have trusted experience in this. Cool, mention that maybe. And then finally, why them and not someone else? This is, I think, the kind of missing thing that not a lot of people talk about. When someone is reaching out to me for whatever they want with their product, I always think, why me? What is it that you need from me specifically that someone else cannot give you? So think about that. Like, what is it about their expertise? Is it that they have a following that you want to tap into? Like, just be honest with what it is and like why it has to be them to say it.
I think that, Amanda, this is one of the greatest reasons to start following someone and researching their background. If you can find something where they clearly have passion and interest and it's not getting all that much traction for them, that now you've formed a connection, right? So someone reaching out to me who's like, hey, I want SEO help. My reply is, I've been out of SEO for like 4 years. Why are you contacting me? But if somebody, that's not true, I'll like try and help. But if somebody contacts me and is like, hey, I am trying to get startups alternative funding and break out of the venture cycle, I'm like, yes, thank God. Oh my God, thank you for reaching out to me. Okay, let's do something together. If you can find that angle of like, they have passion and interest and it's not getting traction for them, ooh, that's that beautiful synergy.
Yeah. Last one here is a framework for a service. So this is a fake email that I drafted. If I were to do some cold outreach, if I were an agency or a consultant, something kind of like this. What is your service? So what do you do specifically? What kind of agency are you? A marketing agency. Cool. What kind of marketing agency? Be specific. Why the timing of your note, right? I think timing is important for, maybe this even just applies to anything with a longer sales cycle. Like, why now and why not last month or next month? Maybe you have a seasonal offer. I don't know. Why you and not someone else? And what are the next steps? I think this is something that a lot of people tend to miss out on. What specifically are the next steps? Is it that you want to have a meeting? Or is it just, hey, I have a resource for you, or let me know when is a good time to follow up with you. Be clear about that. Okay, so I wanted to show two effective emails. This is one, I thought this was a good impersonal email. And I'm saying impersonal because I imagine this person sent the same email to hundreds, thousands of people, or maybe not thousands, but who knows, right? But probably sent the same exact thing to a bunch of people, but I still thought it was pretty good. Let's go through why. Quick intro of self and company. So one quick sentence says who she is, says what her company does, explains the pain point. Like, I started this company for this reason. Cool. Explains what they do, like what exactly Atomic does. A little bit of social proof. Like, here are some people that currently work with us. That's cool. And then there's a clear request. If this resonates with you, I'd love to share more over a 15-minute call. Great. Very lovely. This was easy to read. This was, under 200 words, 50 seconds of read time. Lovely. However, so I read this. However, I did not respond. I didn't reply back because it wasn't relevant to me. I wasn't looking for this. So this is where I say, like, this is why it's worth it to do that upfront work to determine whether your offer might actually be a good fit for what they're currently doing. So here's a good personalized email. This is an email I sent over 10 years ago, or 10, I can't count, over 9 years ago. This was how I got into marketing. I used to be a reporter. I used to work in the test kitchen, but I decided to break out into content marketing and food, and I sent a bunch of cold emails. I used the Wealthfront guide to get into that. Oh, did it exist then? Might not have existed, but I think I really just did a ton of manual research. I think I looked up all the food startups that got some funding, the hypothesis being, well, they're probably going to be hiring for people, made a list of them, found their emails, like what I could find online, and then I wrote emails to them. So first I started out with stating my knowledge of the industry at large, like here's why I'm passionate about this, specifically why NatureBox, the snack company that I worked at, a little bit about me and my skills in under 100 words. So I went to culinary school, went to college, worked in news. Okay, here's what I can do. I called out a related side project, which I don't have anymore, so I just took out the name. A side project that is relevant to their needs. And then finally, my request. Are there any career opportunities? Might there be a position for someone with my skill set? That said, this is kind of long. I mean, if I were to do this again today, it wouldn't be this long, it'd be a little bit shorter. But this worked. I ended up, they replied back to me and said like, hey, thank you for this note. Really appreciate it. We're not hiring right now, but let's stay in touch. And then I did. I followed up like a month after. And then I ended up getting hired, I think. So this was October. I got hired in March of 2013. So this worked.
Amanda, I am detecting a pattern.
What do you mean?
This is not dissimilar to how you got hired at SparkToro. You are very effective at cold outreach. Or warm outreach. I don't know. That's anyway. All right.
Oh yeah, I should say like the cold or warm outreach I did to Rand. It wasn't even for this job. It was, he followed me back. So I did what any other normal person would do, which was close my app and put my phone down. And then one of my friends noticed, it was Ramley John. He was like, you should message him. And I was like, absolutely not. That's embarrassing. I would never do that. Why would anyone do that? And he was like, because he followed you. I was like, not doing that. But I think maybe I think it was a couple hours later, because I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, it should be when I'm top of mind, not like a week later when he's like, who are you again? So I replied and said, it was related to food. I think I sent you a link to my newsletter and was like, hey, I heard you were looking for a recipe for teriyaki. I have one. It's a decent recipe if you want to take a look. Here's my link. And it was a link to my ConvertKit newsletter, which we had like a bunch of other stuff in it. And I was like, you don't have to read the other stuff. Just scroll to the bottom. And then, we became friends.
There you go. Boom.
There you go.
Very, very, very effective outreach. Oh, good. Yes. You've got some resources, and then I know there's some Q&A. Great.
Our last slide. Cool. So for further resources for email and copywriting, reallygoodemails.com. They have a bunch of email templates and examples to look at. Swipefiles.com. Also a good resource, not just for email, but for landing pages, events, a bunch of stuff related to marketing. It's a nice marketing resource and community run by Corey Haynes. Readometer. Here's where I was getting the read times for things. When I said like 240 words, that was like over a minute of read time. I just go here and I just kind of do a quick check. HemingwayApp.com to just make sure you are writing in like active voice, being clear, tight sentences. And then finally, Grammarly.com. Check for typos, that kind of thing. And that's it. All right. I know we took up most of the time.